Hey everyone, today we're taking a look at Motley Fool Epic Plus, one of the Motley Fool's premium stock research services. This is the next tier above Epic, and it includes more stock recommendations every month, as well as some really interesting research tools that I think more self-directed investors are really going to like. This service isn't cheap, but it packs a lot in. And in this video, I explain everything you get with Epic Plus, how it differs from Epic, and who it's a good fit for. So let's dive in first by taking a look at the stock recommendation newsletters that come with Epic Plus. You get the same 4 portfolios that are available with Epic. That's Stock Advisor, Rule Breakers, Hidden Gems, and Dividend Investor. It also adds 6 additional recommendation portfolios: AI Playbook, Moneymakers, Global Partners, Options, Trends, and Value Hunters. In total, you can expect at least 8 stock recommendations per month across all these services, and potentially up to 10 or more. I'm not going to go into too much detail about Stock Advisor, Rule Breakers, Hidden Gems, or Dividend Investor since I cover those in my full Epic video review, which I'll link below. But I do want to talk about some of these new portfolios because what I really like about them is that they break out of the mold of the core Epic services. What I mean by that is that Stock Advisor, Rule Breakers, and Hidden Gems are all pretty focused on explosive growth stocks, and I sometimes feel like the stocks recommended can get repetitive across those services. That's really not the case with Epic Plus because these added services give you access to particular market niches that can really help you diversify your portfolio. Take Global Partners as an example. This service has recommended some really interesting companies from Canada, the UK, Sweden, China, South America, and more. I'd never heard of some of these companies before the Motley Fool put them on my radar. I'm just a lot more familiar with US stocks, and that's where a lot of my research focus is. So this service was a really cool option if you're thinking about diversifying away from US stocks or looking to capitalize in growth in Europe or emerging markets. It's just about match the performance of the S&P 700 International Stocks Index from when it launched in 2018 to January 2026, which is solid enough for me since I'm mainly using it for diversification and the potential to find a few standout winners. Another service, Value Hunters, is pretty unique for the Motley Fool in that it focuses on growth at a reasonable price. These are not companies you're going to find in Stock Advisor or Rule Breakers for the most part, and they can add a really important value dimension to your portfolio. A lot of these recommendations are just solid companies that are trading below their fair value, and that approach can work really well with the 5-year longer investment horizon that Motley Fool recommends. Value Hunters has matched their performance to the S&P 500 from its launch in 2023 to January 2026, but I think this actually understates the potential value of this service since Value Hunter stocks could be a lot more resilient if volatility picks up in the broader market. AI Playbook and Trends both feel more growth-focused, similar to Rule Breakers, and as the name suggests, they have a heavy emphasis on AI-related tech stocks. Of these two, the Trend services feels a little more interesting to me because it covers some mid-cap biotech and energy stocks that might otherwise fly under the radar, and the Motley Fool does a great job explaining why these particular companies are worth owning. AI Playbook is a great service for anyone looking to capitalize on the AI boom without putting your entire portfolio in NVIDIA. Both AI Playbook and Trends launched in 2024, and they've slightly underperformed the S&P 500 as of January 2026, but I'd say it's still a little early to comment on their performance since they have a 5-year investment time frame. The options service is a bit different from the other services in Epic Plus because it recommends specific options trades. Most of the recommendations are for neutral to bullish strategies like bull call spreads, covered calls, and long calls. Trades are described in pretty good detail, so you don't have to be an expert on options trading to follow along. And I really like that the Motley Fool includes an options trading crash course with the service so you can learn everything you need to know. The only thing to keep in mind is that trades aren't necessarily on a regular schedule like recommendations for other services, and options tends to be a bit more active. They're usually a handful of trades per month, and they might come spaced out a week apart, or they come all in the same day or two. So you do have to keep a close eye on options to make sure you don't miss anything important. So those are the new recommendation services you get with Epic Plus, and they can be really valuable on their own. But what I think makes Epic Plus so much more valuable for self-directed investors compared to Epic, and what really takes the service beyond just adding more monthly recommendations, is what the Motley Fool is calling Moneyball. Moneyball is basically a database of 3,600 stocks that the Motley Fool analysts are tracking, and it gives you access to really detailed ratings and metrics that are specific to the Motley Fool. This isn't trying to be a Seeking Alpha clone that summarizes fundamental data. It actually gives you custom Motley Fool ratings on a scale from 0 to 100 for companies' leadership, product moat, cash flow efficiency, growth, value, and more. It's a really powerful tool for researching recommendations from other Epic Plus services or finding your own actionable ideas. So I'll show you how this works. In the Moneyball database, you can quickly sort by super score, which is an overall rating based on all the component scores that the Motley Fool assigns, or you can filter based on industry, financial score, product score, dividend yield, price momentum, and more. There's some pretty interesting filters to check out in here, like the return on unleveraged net tangible assets, which Warren Buffett famously used to gauge company operational advantages. I also like the pay score, which rates a company's executive compensation scheme based on how much it dilutes shareholders and how well it aligns C-suite incentives with investors' incentives. You can view all these scores for stocks that meet any of your filters in the table. And if you click on any stock, it'll pull up a handy research report with basic financial details and an AI-generated bull and bear case summary. You can also see what ranking list the stock is currently on and all the times this stock has been recommended across Epic Plus services. Take the quant model scores that are included here at the bottom with a grain of salt, since at least for Stock Advisor Recs, I haven't found that the quant model is particularly good at predicting which stocks are going to outperform the market. The Motley Fool is also a little bit tight-lipped about how the quant model actually works. I haven't been able to find any backtesting data or performance details about it, so I've mostly not been using this information in my own research. If we go back to the table, one other thing I really like is the comment section on these stocks. People ask pretty good questions, and the Motley Fool analysts actually respond with detailed answers. I've even run across a few responses from Tom Gardner, the co-founder and CEO of the Motley Fool. And depending on the question, I've seen analysts explain why a certain company hasn't been made one of the recommendations, or provide updates on why they do or don't like a stock after an earnings report or a big price move. This reminds me a bit of the contributor articles on Seeking Alpha, but it's a lot more condensed, and there's a lot less reading to do, which is nice for quick research. The only drawback I found to the Moneyball database is that you can't save custom filters. This isn't a huge deal, but it's a little bit weird that the Motley Fool hasn't added this feature, and it just slows things down a bit. The other thing to note is that Moneyball is included with Epic, but it is a much more limited format. You only get access to about 350 stocks versus more than 3,600 with Epic Plus. At least to me, it feels like you really need Epic Plus to use this database effectively. The Motley Fool also uses Moneyball to offer a daily stock recommendation service, the Moneyball Portfolio. You get a recommendation every day the market is open based on the Motley Fool analysis of top Moneyball stocks. I found that they do a nice job of taking momentum and news into account, so it's not just recommending the stock with the highest super score every day. That said, I personally don't follow the Moneyball portfolio too closely, since to me it doesn't make a ton of sense to add new stocks to my portfolio every day when the Motley Fool is so strongly built around long-term investing. It just feels like a little bit too much, and like new recommendations are coming even when market conditions haven't changed that much from day to day, so there's not that much to be gained potentially. What I do instead, though, is look at the Moneyball portfolio to see what stocks have been recommended recently and compare that with stocks in the Moneyball database that have passed my filters for growth, value, and other scores that I care about for my strategy. That usually gives me a few finalists to research more, and then I see what ranking lists those stocks are currently on and dive into the most recent research reports across the different Epic Plus newsletters. I feel like this gives me a lot of confidence that the stocks I'm interested in are strongly recommended by multiple of the Motley Fool analysts, and that the timing for an entry is pretty good. You can use Epic Plus in a lot of different ways, but I found that this is the best way for me personally to leverage the entire Epic Plus ecosystem without getting too in the weeds on any individual service or spending too much time trying to track all of the different recommendations. So with all of that in mind, let's talk about how much Epic Plus costs and who it's best for. The service normally costs $1,999 per year, but I've got a discount code that I'll include with this video that cuts that price dramatically. I'm pretty excited about this offer because frankly, it's really good, and it makes Epic Plus worth it for a much bigger group of investors. At $19.99 per year, the Motley Fool suggests having at least a $100,000 portfolio, and I'd say that's a minimum considering that's 2% of your portfolio at $100,000. I'd suggest you have more like $200,000 or more, including a good chunk of available cash, so you can actually take advantage of all the different recommendations. With my discount, a $100,000 portfolio is much more doable, although I'd still recommend that you have at least a few $1,000s in new cash to invest each month, so you can keep up with all the recommendations and ideas. Compared to other of the Motley Fool services, Epic Plus is much more geared towards self-directed and active investors, so keep that in mind when deciding if this service is right for you. Whereas with Epic, you can actually follow all the monthly recommendations if you want to. That's really just not that viable for most people using Epic Plus, and you're going to have to use the research, the rankings lists, and the Moneyball database to figure out which ideas you want to invest in. I recommend trying out Epic first, and if you find yourself cross-referencing recommendations across rankings lists or looking for more ways to diversify your portfolio, then upgrading to Epic Plus could be the next move. Overall, this is a really impressive service for more advanced investors and people with large portfolios in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. It takes everything I liked about the Motley Fool Epic and adds in some powerful self-directed research tools and more diversified investment ideas. You can use my discount code to get Epic Plus for a terrific price and try out the service for yourself today.